Now, joining me to discuss all of this is Accuracy in Media President Adam Guillette. Adam, thank you so much. I want to get to some of your efforts to call out this anti-Semitism on campuses in a moment. But first, these three university presidents all but endorsed calls for genocide and said that's fine. Is it any wonder that students on these campuses have been picking up the cue?
Oh, not at all. This is the end result of decades of the behavior that you just summarized. When you spend decades letting people know that if you misgender somebody, you might be expelled. But if you threaten genocide against other people, as long as they're in the appropriate group, it's A-OK. You spend decades doing that, and of course it leads to the violence, to the harassment, to the threatening that we're seeing on nearly every campus in America today.
And I mean, Adam, tell me about this too, because it's fascinating to me how the whole way of sort of problematizing different races and saying that everything is about an oppressed and oppressor mindset. Is this how we wind up with this bizarre situation where feminists who crusade against any sort of, violence against women and any sort of, abuse of women in the West are also somehow happy to kind of ignore, if not even celebrate, what happened to women in Israel on 10/7?
Yeah, it comes directly from what you're talking about is exactly right. It comes directly from Marxist progressive intersectionality teachings. The notion that everyone should be lumped into a group of either oppressors and oppressed. And all of those who are oppressed, the problem is free enterprise, free market capitalism. The solution is to overthrow capitalism and replace it with Marxism. That's how you get LGBTQ groups teaming up with people who would throw them off of a roof if they were in Gaza or Iran and LGBTQ. That's how you get auto workers teaming up with radical environmentalists who would take away all of their jobs. It's intersectionality.
And Adam, I want you to get your reaction here to the president of the University of Pennsylvania. Now, she put out a video after that disgraceful performance, and if people at home weren't quite following along, she was the one who was almost smirking as she delivered her answer. Let's have a look at how she reacted to the outrage of how she behaved at Capitol Hill.
There was a moment during yesterday's congressional hearing on anti-Semitism when I was asked if a call for the genocide of Jewish people on our campus would violate our policies. In that moment, I was focused on our university's longstanding policies aligned with the U.S. Constitution, which say that speech alone is not punishable. I was not focused on, but I should have been, the irrefutable fact that a call for genocide of Jewish people is a call for some of the most terrible violence human beings can perpetrate.
Now, this is presumably an intelligent person who rose to the top of one of the biggest universities in America. How could she not have gotten that question? She was asked multiple times to pass this very simple test.
Well, she's been facing just as little ramifications and consequences for horrible actions as the anti-Semites on her campus. Until recently. I'll tell you, in the past 36 hours, our activists sent over 13,000 angry emails to the board of trustees of her university. Today, we had a billboard parked outside of her home all day long that had her name, and it said that she was Hamas's best friend in America. It played the shame soundbite from Game of Thrones on a loop for 8 hours. So I'd like to think that we took that smirk off of her face.
Well, and Adam, tell us, you mentioned the billboard. Tell us about the trucks. We've played a little bit of the trucks that you've been putting out around some of the campuses. Tell us about what you've been doing with these. We're seeing some of them up here. Who are these people that you've been putting up and highlighting, and what has the reaction been to your calling out people for saying what they've actually said?
That's right. So at Harvard, for example, 30 student organizations signed a proclamation blaming Israel entirely for the terrorist actions on October 7th. So we took the names and pictures of the student leaders as published by their student newspaper, put them on a billboard and sent them to their campus with the title Harvard's Leading Anti-Semites. Then we bought their domain names like amaributler.com and set up profile pages explaining what they've done. Then we worked with search engine optimization experts so that if you Google them, our page will be the first result or one of the first results. How do they respond? As you'd expect, violence, When I went to their campus, they assaulted me. They assaulted our cameraman. They bashed our truck with a brick. I get emails every day saying they want to put a Hamas bullet through my head. I didn't know Hamas had branded bullets. I've been swatted 9 times, which means 9 times they called my local law enforcement agency and claimed something like I had a gun to my wife's head to get a SWAT team to come to my home and inadvertently kill me. That's exactly how they've responded. These are wretched human beings. That's why we're going to expose every last one of them.
And they are really wretched because, you know, let's hear from some of the students here on some of these campuses from a variety of schools. They were also on Capitol Hill telling the public and legislators how bad it now is on their campuses. Have a look at this.
Today, in 2023, at NYU, I hear calls to gas the Jews, and I am told that Hitler was right. To the NYU administration, you are not free to selectively enforce your own rules.
36 hours ago, I, along with most of campus, sought refuge in our rooms. As classmates and professors chanted proudly for the genocide of Jews while igniting smoke bombs and defacing school property.
Multiple times a week, on my way to class, I walk by mobs of people chanting "From the river to the sea," which is a call for the destruction of the state of Israel. Most recently, "We have you outnumbered," and "Globalize the Intifada."
Now, I mean, that just shows that this is not, you know, just people complaining about nothing here. There's some real serious problems on these campuses. Are these campuses now, after all of this, because we're starting to hear reports that donations are starting to dry up. We're starting to hear that law firms, for example, are saying we won't employ people who were involved with any of this stuff. The reputational and potential financial damage is starting to bite. Are these universities starting to finally wake up to this?
Yes and no. You know, they're providing lip service and claiming that they're going to do things. They claim they're creating committees to deal with anti-Semitism. Hopefully they mean to get rid of it, not to increase it. Hard to tell with some of these universities. They claim they're doing things. I don't believe them for a second. Because sure, some of their donations dry up. They've got billions of dollars in endowments. They're federally funded, even though they're private universities. They're federally funded. So they don't have any reason as a university to reform. That's why it's so incredibly important for us to act. That's why it's so incredibly important for private citizens to act. That's why we send mobile billboards to mom and dad's house of these student leaders so that mom and dad have to explain to their neighbors why their kid doesn't like the Jews. And that's why we're sending mobile billboards to their employers when they graduate so that their future employers can understand exactly who they're working with.
Adam Guillette from Accuracy in Media, keep up the great work. Thank you so much for bringing us the real insights into what's happening on these campuses in America. We'll have you back again in the new year sometime, I'm sure.